Hey guys, so today's topic is going to be over standard form and intercepts, alright? We're going to talk about two types of intercepts, the x and the y intercept, and just briefly go over standard form. Alright, we won't be solving or writing in standard form, but we're going to be using the standard form to find the x and y intercepts. Alright, so our essential question, how do I identify intercepts? So how do I recognize them and use them in linear relationships? Okay, so we're also going to use them in relationships where we're comparing two things and it'll be a straight line. That's linear relationships. See, right? So moving on, let's move to standard form. This says a times x plus b times y equals c. A way to recognize this standard form is your a, b equals a number, but more importantly, okay, your x and your y, okay, are on the same side, equals to a number, a constant, okay? So usually when you recognize standard form, x and y are on the same side and it's equal to a number. There are a couple special rules with standard form where a can't be negative and there can't be fractions, but we'll go into more detail when we actually look at standard form in a future lesson. All right, let me get that out of the way. Okay, so let's talk about the intercepts though. X-intercept is a point where the graph crosses the x-axis. Simple as that, okay? So as an example, if you had a graph and I draw a line, your x-intercept would be here. It crosses the x line, the horizontal line, the x-axis. But the thing is, if I were to say that was a point, let's say you would say that point would be 4 and it's nowhere on the y yet, right? So it's 0. Notice that y is 0. So whenever you want to look at the x-intercept, the y is always 0. Y equals 0 always. Look at my examples, right? You see, this is an x-intercept, the y is 0. This example is an x-intercept, the y is 0. Here as well, all zeros, all right? So when you see a point, that second value, that y in that point is always 0. Okay, now y-intercept is a point where the graph crosses the y-axis, the y line, okay? Simple as that, all right? Remember, intercept is like, say, intersection, right? It's where streets cross, okay? It crosses the y-axis. And if you can guess, x is always 0. Like, imagine if I grab this point, right? Let's say that's 3, 0, ooh, excuse me. Messed up there. 0, 3, right? Your x is always 0. Notice the examples. Same case here. X is always 0, 0, negative 44. X is always 0, 0, comma, negative 19. Okay? X is always 0. Keeping that in mind. The main thing here we're going to try to do on this lesson is remember that when you're finding y-intercept, x equals 0. When you're finding x-intercept, y equals 0. Alright? Keep that in mind. Alright, so let's do example 1. Find the x-intercept and y-intercept of the graph 3x minus 4y equals 12. So notice that is in standard form. Standard form is nice when you're trying to find intercepts, alright? So first off, I want to find the x-intercept, okay? X-intercept. That means I am going to have to plug 0 in for y. So really, whenever you're solving for x-intercept, just recognize that y has to be 0. So go to your problem, change the y to a 0. So 3x minus 4. Now instead of a y, I can place a 0 equals 12. Now here's the thing. 4 times 0 is basically 0, right? Or negative 4 times 0, right? It cancels out. 0 times anything would be 0. So really, the only problem you're solving for is 3x minus 12. Okay? And the way to solve that means getting x by itself. All you got to do is divide by 3. So really, if you're solving for intercepts and you have it in standard form, there's really only one step to this, all right? Cancel out the y because you're solving for x, right? X-intercept. And then divide the c by the a, or 12 divided by 3. Okay, and 12 divided by 3 would be 4. So you would come out with x equals 4. Now the thing is, that is not your final answer, okay? X would be 4, but remember, an intercept is the point it crosses. That means your x would be 4, but we know y is always 0, right? Remember, x is 4, y is 0. that means your final answer would actually be written as a point 4, 0. Alright? Let's solve for the y-intercept. So y-intercept, you have to plug in 0 for x. So kind of the reverse. If you want to find y, now x has to be 0. Let's plug in 0 for x. 3. X now becomes 0 minus 4y equals 12. Alright, and again, anything times 0 cancels out. So really, if you're looking at your original equation, right, and you want to find the y-intercept, you can go ahead and let's just cross that out, ignore that part, solve for the rest of the problem, right? So what we're solving for is negative 4y equals 12. Okay, and the way to solve that, I got to get y by itself, so I got to divide by negative 4, which would give me y equals negative 3. Again, that is not your answer, right? Your answer is written as a point. 0 would be your x, right? Remember here, plug in 0 for x. Y would be negative 3. That would be your final answer. The nice thing about intercepts are pretty easy to grab. It's going to be on the x line, it's going to be on the y line. So first off, 4, 0 would be here, right? 4, 0. And then I got 0, negative 3, 0, negative 3. And just draw your line, and you can graph it. Alright? Let's do another example. X and y intercept of the graph 4x plus 3y. So again, like I mentioned, if you want to find the x-intercept, okay, y has to be 0. If you want to find the y-intercept, x has to be 0. Kind of reverse, alright? And again, another easy way, if you're finding x-intercept, ignore the y. So basically, if you had this problem, right, if you plug in 0 for y, that means anything times 0 is just going to cancel. Oh, excuse me. That's not supposed to be a 12. Copied the problem wrong. I apologize. But all you're really solving is 4x equals 12. So if you recognize that you're plugging in for 0 and 0 just cancels it out, okay? 0 times anything is going to be 0. You can just ignore that, solve for the rest of the problem. So 4x equals 12. The way to solve that, divide by 4. That means x equals 3, but as your final answer, it would be 3, 0. Alright? Let's solve for y. So the same idea, okay, but now x has to be 0. So really, if we cross this out, you're just solving for 3y equals 12. And to solve that, cancel the 3, right? That would give me y equals 4. Again, that's not your answer, but written as a point. Okay? Graph those 2 points. So 3, 0, and then 0, 4. Alright. 3, 0, 0, 4. And you can draw your line. Alright? Let's do another one. Well, x and y intercept. So again, if you can recognize that here, 2y, 3x minus 6, x-intercept, you're going to plug in y equals 0, and y-intercept, you're going to plug in x equals 0, alright? Now that form, this problem is actually not in standard form. You can go ahead and plug in 0, but you'll get an answer, but it's nice to put it in standard form first. That way, okay, you won't have to deal with zeros, it'll always end up with a number, okay? You always have that constant, that c on the other side. So to make it into standard form, let's move the 3x over. So 3x, negative 3x plus 2y equals negative 6. Now that's not exactly in standard form because your a is negative. We'll talk about that further, but for now you can solve for this, alright? So if I want to solve for the x-intercept, y has to be 0, so really all you're solving for is negative 3x equals negative 6, correct? Right? Remember, you would just cancel this, forget it. Alright, you can plug in the 0 and write it out if you like, but let's just solve it as this. 3x, so divide by negative 3, and negative 6 divided by negative 3 is 2. That is not your answer. 2, 0, as a point would be your final answer. So working the other way around, right? Now I'm solving for the y-intercept. That means I can ignore this x, right? I can ignore that x. So let's just do 2y equals negative 6. And to solve for that, divide by 2. Y equals negative 6 divided by 2, negative 3. But your final answer has a point 0, negative 3. Let's graph that. 2 zeros here. 0, negative 3 is here. And that would draw your line. Alright. Last example, 4x equals 16. I would solve that by dividing by 4. X is just 4. Excuse me. And again, if it's x is just 4, x is always 4. You have an x-intercept of 4. There is no y, so no y-intercept. You would draw a horizontal line. And that is it for x and y-intercepts and standard form. All right, thank you.